Juana Ramirez de Azbahai sat before a panel of the most brilliant minds in New Spain, prestigious theologians, jurists, and mathematicians, handpicked by the viceroy himself. Their mission? To test the young woman's intellect with the most difficult questions they could muster. But Juana was no ordinary scholar. With sharp wit and unshakable confidence, she answered every challenge, from complex equations to deep philosophical debates. Onlookers later compared the scene to a majestic royal galleon, effortlessly fending off a fleet of fragile canoes. The woman at the center of this legendary moment was born in the mid-17th century, a time when Mexico had been under Spanish rule for over a century, creating a rigid and deeply stratified society. Juana's maternal grandparents, born in Spain, placed her lineage among Mexico's elite. But fate had other plans. She was born out of wedlock, and her father, a Spanish military captain, abandoned her mother, Doña Isabel, leaving her to raise Juana and her sisters alone. Fortunately, Juana's grandfather ensured the family lived comfortably, and Doña Isabel, defying societal expectations, successfully managed one of her father's estates. Her strength and intellect left a lasting imprint on her daughter, inspiring Juana's own unshakable confidence. From an early age, Juana's hunger for knowledge was unstoppable. At just 3 years old, she secretly followed her older sister to school, desperate to learn. Later, when she discovered that higher education was reserved for men, she boldly asked her mother if she could disguise herself as a boy to attend university. Her request was denied, but she refused to be deterred. Instead, she devoured every book in her grandfather's library, teaching herself philosophy, Latin, and even Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs. By the time she was a teenager, Juana's brilliance had caught the attention of Mexico's royal court. At 16, she was invited to serve as a lady-in-waiting to the viceroy's wife, where she dazzled the elite with her poetry, plays, and razor-sharp intellect. But she wasn't just a prodigy, she was a rebel. Her poem, Foolish Men, boldly condemned the hypocrisy of men who corrupted women, yet blamed them for immorality. The piece sparked controversy, but instead of diminishing her, it only fueled the admiration of her peers. Suitors lined up, eager to win her hand. But Juana had no interest in marriage. Her heart belonged to knowledge. In the 17th century, a woman who wished to pursue scholarship had only one path: the church. At 20, Juana took the veil, entering the Hieronymite convent of Santa Paula and adopting the name Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. It was a strategic move. Within the convent, she could study, write, and engage in intellectual discourse without the constraints of marriage or societal expectations. For years, Sor Juana flourished. She wrote brilliant comedies, philosophical essays, and even treatises on mathematics and music. Her library was legendary, and scholars traveled far and wide just to converse with her. She wasn't just an intellectual powerhouse, she was a force of nature. But power, especially in the hands of a woman, was dangerous. In 1690, a bishop secretly published one of Sor Juana's private critiques of a respected sermon, using it as an opportunity to publicly chastise her. He advised her to abandon scholarly pursuits and devote herself to prayer. Sor Juana's response was legendary. God would not have given women intellect if he did not intend for them to use it. That defiant stand, however, came at a cost. The conservative Archbishop of Mexico took notice, and soon the church began stripping her of her privileges. One by one, her books were taken, her writings silenced. Forced into submission, she was made to sell her beloved library and renounce her work. But even in her final act of surrender, she found a way to rebel. She signed her renewed vows with a chilling statement, "I, the worst of all," written in her own blood. With her passion for scholarship taken from her, Sor Juana turned to charity, dedicating herself to caring for the sick. In 1695, while nursing her fellow sisters during an outbreak, she contracted the illness herself. She died as she had lived, fearless, selfless, and defiant. Today, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz is revered as the first feminist of the Americas. Her legacy endures in novels, operas, and documentaries, and her face graces Mexico's 200 peso banknote. Nobel laureate Octavio Paz once said, It is not enough to say that Sor Juana's work is a product of history. We must add that history is also a product of her work. A woman centuries ahead of her time, Sor Juana's words still echo, a reminder that intellect, courage, and defiance can outlive even the most oppressive of eras. I've been your host, Myths and Legends.